What's up everybody, and welcome back to another tutorial. And in this video we're going to talk about the new multi-state box that is now available on EditorX. We're going to get to know how to work with it, what are the capabilities, some tips and tricks, and we'll build a cool slideshow using it with some Velo. So let's get into it. So this is the website that we're going to build together. It's a simple movie streaming website. As you can see on the top right here, the hero section is a slideshow that was built using MultiState Box. We're gonna do that. It's set to simply change a state using a timer that we're gonna build together as well. And also we have a carousel of movies over here. Yeah, so it's quite simple. It's just to get to know the basics of MultiState Box and what it's capable of. So let's dive in the editor. All right, so I have the canvas open. We can get rid of the header. We don't need it actually. We're gonna start with our section. Let's add a grid of 2 rows to the section. And the rows are gonna be split in the following way, kind of. We'll get to it, we're building it. In the first row, we want to put the multi-state box, which is going to be the slideshow. On the second row, we want to put the carousel, the TV show's carousel or whatever. So let's first of all change the page's background color. It was a dark color, just like that. I've pre-uploaded the media, so it's already in the media manager. We have the images here and the logos of these movies. They're just in white, so you can't really see them, but it's over here. We're gonna add that as well. And I have a gradient, which I added. You can export your images with gradient, or you can export the gradient separately as an SVG. That's what I like to do. So I just created a gradient in Figma and exported it as SVG. We're gonna use those images, but first of all, we need to add the multi-state box. So the multi-state box is in your add panel in layout tools, and you should see multi-state boxes. But if you don't see the multi-state boxes, make sure that you turn on your dev mode. Okay, at the moment you'll need dev mode turned on in order to add multi-state box because the states can only be changed using Velo. So turn on your dev mode and let's drag the multi-state box over here to our canvas. Good. So let's stretch it. It's currently sitting on the first row. That's good. Let's reset the margins for the left and top and change the width to 100%. There we go. We can also get rid of this background color, and also the state inside has a background color. We don't need that. There we go. Now the height of the multi-state box is determined by the state. So only the state has a height. The multi-state box itself does not have any height. It's set to auto. So if you click once again and you go deeper, you'll get to the container, which is the state, right? So in the layers panel, it looks like this. If I hide the IDs, we can see that it's a multi-state box, and inside there is box 2, box 3, which are the states. I'm going to turn this back on again. And to switch between states, we can do that or using the layers panel or by selecting the multi-state box, and we can click manage states and we can simply move between the states we see on the screen. Good. We can actually delete this state for now because we want to first design the first state through all breakpoints, and then we can just duplicate it and use it for just changing the logo and the image, and that's it. It's pretty simple. So let's start doing that. I'm gonna choose the container and make this 100 VH, or actually less. Let's make it 80. Okay, 80 VH, which is 80% of the viewport height. And we're gonna start by adding the images. So I'll go to media, and I want this to be as my first image. There we go. And I'm not gonna stretch it, but I am going to dock it to the top right and make it 80%. fill up 80% of my state. And I'm gonna add here on top of it, I'm gonna add the SVG, the gradient SVG actually. So let's choose this. And to make it cover the image, we're gonna do the same margin settings and docking settings like the image has. So we're gonna dock it to the top right with 0 margins and set it to be 80% width. Okay, so right now it's super big and we don't actually need it this big. So we can click on settings and uncheck keep original proportions. This will let us skew our SVG because this is only a gradient. We don't actually need any proportions to it. We just want to stretch it. So let's uncheck this and change the height to 100%. So it covers 100% of the height of the state. And now it's exactly positioned above the image, above this kid right here. Good, so we have that covered, but we also want to add the logo over here. So let's do that. This one is called the spell. So I'm gonna drag this SVG. Okay, now the logo seems a little grayed out. Let's check why. So that's why. This is the gradient that we added and it's above the multi-state box and not inside of it. So we need to reposition it, reparent it actually inside our state above the image. So just by dragging this vector a little bit, we'll see that it will reparent to the state. It will land on the state below. And we just need to reset the margin once again over here. That's it. And now we can move this logo above. There we go. That's how we want it. Good, so let's position the logo over here and let's create the buttons now. So in the original website, we had 2 buttons, watch now and more info. More info is transparent and watch now is not, it's just white. So let's start adding the buttons. I'm gonna go to the add panel and the button category. I'll go down here to style buttons and I'm gonna drag this button because it already comes with an icon and we just need to replace it. So let's first change the text and icon. The text is gonna be watch now and let's replace the icon. I'm gonna go to media from Wix because I don't have the icon and write play. I think this is the one that I used. Choose. All right, so yeah, that looks good. We just need to change the size of it, the color. So let's do that. Let's go to the design panel. First of all, let's change the color of the button itself to white. Let's change the text color to black. The border radius should be 5 pixels and not 50 pixels. The layout, well, we don't see the icon yet, so let's first change the color of the icon to red. There we go. And the size to 35 pixel or 30. I guess 30 is gonna look good. Yeah. Great, so it looks good. We can actually play with the spacing that we have between the text and the icon. Let's make it 5. All right, cool. That's what we want. On hover, we don't want any design changes, so I'm gonna just remove design overrides. Okay, so it's gonna be the same as the regular state. And we're done with this button, so we can duplicate it and start creating the second button. The second button is more info with an info icon. So let's change the color. It's a little transparent, so I'm gonna keep it white and switch to 40% opacity. But we also need to change the text color to white and replace the icon itself. So let's replace it. Once again, media from Wix, info, and let's use this one. Good, but let's change the color of the icon back to white. There we go. And we can make this icon actually a little bigger because it looks smaller. So let's make it 35 pixels. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. And change the text to, what was it? More info. All right, looking good. So now we just want to design the hover state just a little bit. Let's switch to hover and let's reduce the opacity to 20% on hover. Okay, so let's just hit preview to see how it looks. All right, cool. That's what we want. Great. Now we want to stack these together to keep some sort of relationship between the buttons and the logo we have here. So we have two buttons on the same row. So there's a couple approaches to stack them together with the logo, because we currently don't support horizontal stack, only vertical. So we have two buttons on the same line. It's, or we can add them in a container, and then the container is going to be stacked with the logo, or we can use negative margin. And when we're only using two buttons, I think we can use negative margin. It's not a big deal. So let's choose these and stack them. And I'm going to drag this button here as well inside the stack, and it's going to mess it up, but that's fine, because now we're going to just change the layout by adding some margins, switch the docking to the left side, add 160 pixels, and reset the bottom margin. As you can see, it's right on top of this button, so we can add negative 46 pixels. Why 46? Because that's the exact height of the button. The Watch Now button is also 46 pixels height. So if we use negative margin inside a stack of negative 46 pixels, it's just gonna align exactly with our second button. Right, so let's change the size to 150 pixels of each button. So let's make the stack larger. We can assign a width to it, a specific width, or we can just use max content. So if I select the stack and go to width, I can use max content. It's gonna make my stack larger according to the content inside. Now, because we have two buttons that have an absolute width of pixels, it counts as content. That's why our stack is growing according to that. If my buttons were percentage, like all of my elements in the stack were percentage, the stack would collapse on max content. But when you do have a text or any elements with width that are not percent, you can use max content, and because it counts as content. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so the logo here is a little too big, I think. So we can dock it first of all to the left and make this 80%. Yeah, I think that looks good. And we are almost done with this, with the desktop breakpoint. So I'm gonna dock it to the left with maybe 60 pixels and dock it to the bottom with 240 pixels. All right, so it looks good. We just want to add the carousel here on the bottom as well, because there's too much space. So I'm not gonna create the carousel because this is not the purpose of the video. It's a simple repeater with items and some hover interaction. I'm just gonna add it from my library that I saved earlier. So it's under movie stream. I have the carousel as an asset, and I'm just dragging it to the section. Make sure you drag it to the section and not into inside the multi-state box. So right now it's sitting on the second row. That's good, but we want to reset the margins. So from the left, we want 0. And from the top, we want negative 50 pixels or more, negative 70 pixels. All right, to make the grid line just align perfectly with my repeater and the items over here. So yeah, once again, I'm using negative margin as a trick to overlap my my elements without reparenting. So that's totally fine. So this is starting to look good. Let's see on the lower breakpoints. All right, so I already noticed there's an issue here with the image because it has some additional spacing on the bottom. Let's check what it is. So I'm gonna right click here and select a layer. I can see all the layers under my cursor. So I have like a quick access to any layer that I clicked over. I'm gonna select the image. And yeah, its height is set to auto because it's scaling proportionally. I'm just gonna change it to 100%. All right, 80% width, 100% height. That's gonna keep our image looking good on all breakpoints. All right, so it already looks good actually on the tablet, but let's change the margins maybe a little bit. And we're gonna change this to 140 to lower it. And our repeater is a slider because there's not enough space sometimes on tablet and mobile, so I prefer to use a slider to switch my original layout to slider on smaller breakpoints. Yeah, that's why it's sliding over here, and it looks good. Let's switch to mobile. So on mobile, it looks big, too big actually, because it's even causing some overflow. So let's fix that. All right, let's select the stack, change the margins to 20, the left margin to 20, the bottom to 120, and the stack itself should be a little smaller because our minimum width is 320, right? We should support that as well with our design, with our layout. So I'm gonna make these buttons a little smaller. Let's make it 135 and 135. There we go. And make the spacing here also a little smaller, maybe 145. Okay, looking good. And make the logo even smaller, maybe 70%. All right, because it's too big. There we go. Now we also support mobile layout. We also support tablet and desktop. Great, so this is looking good. And this is responsive. Right now we just need to duplicate the state and change the content within it. So I'm gonna do that by selecting the MultiState Box, manage states, duplicate. Once I duplicate, we have a new state over here. I'm gonna click it, and am I on the state? Yes, I'm on box 7. And we can start changing the content here. So I'm gonna start with the logo. The logo is gonna be Swords and Thunder. It's gonna be this movie. So Swords and Thunder. All right, so that's the logo. We can make it a little bigger. We can actually make it 100%. And there's some additional spacing inside the bounding box of this shape. So we can make it smaller just by dragging it because it's keeping its proportions. And cool. Now we have a broken button over here. Nothing to worry about. We can fix that. So let's try resetting this negative margin. And we see that they basically switched places, right? This button was above Watch Now before, and now they just switched places because I played with the layout. I played with an element inside the stack, but that's fine. We can just add the negative margin on this button instead. So negative 46 pixels. Okay, let's change once again the image. The image is, yeah, change image to this one. All right. Okay, so this should look good out of the box on all breakpoints, on tablet, on mobile. Well, for some reason it does not look good on mobile. Let's see why. So the buttons are overflowing the stack. Let's once again shrink this bounding box. There we go. Okay, now it's in place. And the image, yeah, everything's in place. Great, looking good. And we can move on to our next state. Once again, select MultiState Box. Let's duplicate the state once again and switch to box 9. Here we're gonna change the vector art as we did before to no man's land. There we go, and switch. Replace this image to this one. All right, cool. This looks good. Tablet looks good, and mobile looks good. Okay, simple. Once you create your design and your layout on one state, and you just want to reuse it on all states, you should start by making all your changes in the first state. It doesn't work like a repeater, so you'll need to do it manually if you want to make any changes to other states after you create them. So it's better to do all your changes and everything that you plan ahead on the first state that you're going to duplicate. As you can see, it saved us a bunch of time. All right, so this looks good, but now you're maybe asking how do we make a slideshow out of this? So the slideshow is quite simple. It's a very small code, just a few lines. What it does is calculates what is the numbers of states in your multi-state box, and every few seconds that you assign, I chose to put 6 seconds for each state or each slide, but you can change it. Every few seconds, it's gonna change a state, and the states, the IDs of your states are gonna be in here in the layers panel. So right now it's box 9, box 7, and box 2, but you can change the names. And also make sure that this toggle right here, the display IDs, is toggled on. Otherwise, you're gonna see just the layer names and not the actual Velo IDs. So toggle this on, get your IDs. Let's just change them, make this state 3, state 2. And once again, you can see that I'm switching the state by just selecting the layer here in the layers panel. And state 1. Okay, that's my names for my states. And you're just gonna need to replace the names over here in the variable states. So I have state 1, state 2, and state 3. If you have more states, you can simply copy this, paste, and add more. The rest of the code inside this function is kind of generic. I made it so it will automatically count how many states you've inserted here. How many states do you have? So you don't need to manually change something else. This will work just by adding your state IDs over here. So it will change the multi-state box state to the state and the state number. This is just a counter that starts from 0 and counts until it reaches the last state and resets itself. So it's a loop. It's gonna play in a loop. And yeah, so you can basically control the timer here, and the fading effect. As you can see, there is a fading effect for each state. This is done without code. This is done with the built-in Wix animations. So let's do that. I'm gonna select the stack. I'm gonna choose animation and fade in. Let's customize it. No, it's actually good. It's 1.2 seconds. And we should do the same for the image. Okay, this is something that I forgot to do when I initially created the first state. So right now I have to go on each state and add the animation to the stack and image because I forgot to add it in my first state that I created. So that's an example of something that you need to plan ahead instead of then doing it manually for all the items that you forgot to do it on. Yeah, that's it, guys. Hopefully this video helped. This is just the tip of the iceberg for the things you may achieve with MultiState Box. It's a very, very powerful tool, a very organized tool. As you see, the editor looks super clean with not a bunch of content one above each other. It's just switching between states and designing them, laying them out. Every state can be different. I just for this example, I used the state. I duplicated a state that looks the same and changed the content, but it can be completely different. This is up to you and your creativity. I'm gonna make more videos, more tutorials on things to achieve with MultiState Box and in general in Editor X. So if you have any requests or cool ideas, write them down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Hope this video helped you. See you in the next one. Happy building.